Alright, welcome back. This is another tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at an overview of one of my remixes from early 2008. It's Final Fantasy VI, Dirt Devil. I did this for a contest for Square Sound. I had tossed around a lot of ideas, but ultimately all of them failed except this one, and I'm pretty proud of it. So anyway, let's take a listen to the first 8 bars. Okay, now to break some of that stuff down, right off the bat, probably the most interesting thing is that lo-fi percussion, which is here. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff in this project. Now this loop is actually not a lo-fi loop to begin with. I'm just using Lo-Fi Plus on it, which I talked about in my Fat Beats 101 tutorial. As you can hear, without the Lo-Fi Plus, it's just, a breakbeat loop. Nothing special. But I wanted to give it that chip edge, so I threw the Lo-Fi on it. Everything else is, basic backing patterns. This is a sliced breakbeat. Up top we have some more Elab stuff. You can tell Elab/Equip Music, one of my favorite companies. Later on over here, some of the transition effects, just to show you some of my sequencing techniques, quote-unquote techniques. I like doing these pitch drills. They're usually 32nd or 64th notes, or 16th or 32nd triplets, and they kind of add a little bit of flair to your transitions if you don't just want to do the same kind of 8th note or 16th note roll, which is a bit more common. And then there's also sort of a pitch let's see, what is an 808 rim shot? 909? Whatever. It's wherever that is. Anyway, it sounds kind of cool, so that kind of stuff is always fun. So there are a couple important elements here. Most of the things here are unchanged, but there's the bass line, which is notable because it's actually 2 patches. The first one is from Zebra 2. This is something I put together. It's based on a Korg patch. It's on most of the Triton line of keyboards. This is it's a quad pulse wave. Yes, I can't play the keyboard when I'm recording at the same time. So anyway, quad square wave, another dual, I believe, pulse also, except that one's an octave higher. So that's layered with another synth, FM8. That gives it the kind of the lower end bite to it. So combined, it's got the high end and the low end. Then that lead that you hear, let's see. It's a lot of intricate sequencing, but really it's nothing special. A lot of it just falls onto the 1/6 beat grid snap setting, as you can see. So that wasn't too complicated, actually. I just thought it would, sound nice as a variation, some, ornaments on the basic melody. Patch itself is it's a square wave created from a saw wave. It's a saw wave inverted with an LFO on the phase. So that's pulse width modulation, and that's a cool sounding effect. We'll probably cover that in another tutorial. 2 wave shapers. That's distortion into a filter. Got some EQ, chorusing, reverb, and delay on it to kind of give it that sweet cutting sound, and then there's some automation on the mod wheel. So anytime you're adding expression to a performance, that kind of automation is really, really important to give it some life and some human characteristics. Later on, there's some orchestral instruments that come in. I know I'm sort of skipping ahead, but some of the instruments are redundant. They're used, throughout the song. Simple marimba, and some of these other patterns I have. Let's see, where is it? That's an FM synth, FM8 again. That's a distorted square wave in Zebra, another patch. Not what I'm looking for. Here we go. This is the VSL orchestral package, which comes with Contact 2. I use the violins, the cellos, the clarinets, the bass ensemble, bassoon, and harpsichord. And then later on, you're going to hear some of these other instruments like the anvil and the thunder ensemble towards the end. So all this stuff is getting layered. Probably the coolest patch is this one in Zebra. Ultra Bass, very creative name. That's a dual, whatever that is, I just drew it in, and a dual saw, as well as another dual saw, which is pitched an octave higher. They're both detuned, run through a very heavy filter. So here's what it sounds like without the filter. It's kind of nasty, but check this out. So that automation is getting taken care of in the playlist with these patterns. As you can see, there's some cutoff curves, and that gives a little more motion to the sound. Again, you can do that sort of thing in the FL event editor, but of course, unless it's an FL plugin, you get this menu instead of the event editor. And you actually have to go to here, cut, edit events, blah, blah, blah. It's not as easy to do. I just prefer using an automation clip for something like that. Plus, it's easier to see once you're on the playlist itself. Anyway, let's see. So stuff is getting built up, and then I think there's sort of a big thing. Yeah, here we go. And the crazy synth with all the vibrato is also Zebra. Where is it? Yeah, this is why you should use the group feature, which I never use, but I really should. Maybe it's this. Right, so this is another synth PWM Warn lead. It's the same kind of thing as the solo guitar, except it's a little less filtered. The pulse is more emphasized, the vibrato is all the way up, but it's also being controlled with the mod wheel as well, just like the other one. And that's actually playing with the solo guitar patch, except they're harmonizing with each other. And at the same time, we have the bass instruments that I already introduced earlier, the funk bass and the FM8 bass. So really, everything's just getting thrown in. The computer is just crying. All the processor power is getting used up. Then the next theme enters. All that previously was Devil's Lab, some variation, and a little bit of Kefka's theme in the background. This is opening theme number 3 from the soundtrack, which most people don't actually know. Lots of VSL orchestra here. So what's interesting about this bass that I introduce here is that you can tell it sounds a little different from the basses before. Where did I put that? Down? Up? Here we go. Right, so that sounds a little bit different than one of the basses earlier on. Let's say, oh, I don't know. You can hear that in the background. It's definitely not the same as this. But really, there's only one difference. It's the same layered sound as before, the Zebra 2 and the FM8. The difference is I added another synth to the mix, which is actually just a saw wave. I think that's here. Right. It's a saw wave with vibrato, but it adds a high-end buzz to the bass that wasn't there before. And that actually helps the bass cut through the mix more. It's really kind of thunderous, which is exactly what I was going for Umaro's theme, or Umaro, whatever you want to call him. Anyway, we're going to continue with the rest of the song and the climax a little bit later, as well as mastering. Gotta cut off for now. Bye.